Hey, gun people. We're going to talk about Mr. Bill Cosby here. I just watched a little documentary on it and decided it's not coffee. Somebody's going to tell me, you can't drink on YouTube, it's illegal. Whatever. Cheers. Let's talk about Bill Cosby case. This is kind of an interesting case to me. So, I kind of was sitting here watching this interview and I took down a couple notes, kind of like, all right, if I was working this case, or the investigators that are working this case, what are they going to need to do, and how hard is this case going to be to prove? So, in case you haven't heard about what's going on with Bill Cosby, I don't know, 15, 20 women have come now when they were 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 years old, and they're now in their 50s, are all saying that he drugged them and raped them. Now, I got problems with this case on multiple levels. So let's talk about, obviously rape isn't good, it's not right. If he did it, then he needs to be caught. But, you know, this double standard about Smokey's chasing a cricket behind me. Smokey, I'm trying to film. So, you know, I'm a firm believer that if a crime occurs and you don't report it within a year, you lose your right to report it. Rick, that's not fair. You're a sexist. Rape's personal and it's traumatic and it's a... whatever. Look. If it's that traumatic, then you report it. I mean, you don't see people running around coming back 5 years later saying, hey, a guy shot me. What, is getting shot not traumatic? Of course it's traumatic. But you go to the hospital, you get treatment, and you report it. So, I mean, this crap about coming in 20 and 30 years later, now, and again, this is what adults, these are consenting women adults who have all agreed in all their statements. They liked Bill Cosby, they looked up to him, he called them, they worked with him, he invited them to the house, they went to their house, and then all of a sudden, they don't remember anything, and he was trying to shove his penis in their mouth, and he was having sex with them, and he was naked, and they were foggy, and they never told anybody, because they figured nobody would believe them. Now, that may be true, and if I was dealing with high school kids, I might buy that. The priests molesting young boys, they're not telling people, I buy that. They're looking at an authority figure, they're young, they don't want to tell anybody, they're embarrassed. I get all that. It's not like I don't get that. But if you're going to come back 35 years later and be crying on TV about how traumatic this is, and you never told anybody, but now all of a sudden, because other people are saying it, I'm going to tell my story. Man, you just lose a whole bunch of credibility with me, and I would think you would lose it with jurors. But we'll see. They're filing a criminal case on him. Very, very tough case to prove. Okay? You've got 20, 30 years past the crime. You've got no physical evidence. You've only got their word against his. I can't go do a search warrant on his house and find the drug he used to drug these women. I can't go to the rape case or go to the hospital and say, did you perform a rape kit? So you don't have any of his DNA. I can't collect any DNA or evidence off the woman. We're talking 20 years later and 15 or 20 women are saying, he raped me and he used drugs and I didn't tell anybody. But I knew it. So I'm looking at this case and I'm like, man, what a nightmare. How are you going to, and I know what they're going to do. They're going to play the sympathy woman card. You're going to have all these 55-year-old women coming up here saying, oh, I'm so embarrassed and I can't believe I waited, I never told. And they're going to parade these women in there and they're going to have a bunch of women on the jury and they're going to convict them. I mean, that's just my prediction right now. They're going to convict them only because of the numbers. You know, if you tell a lie long enough, people believe it is true. I'm not saying these women are lying. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying, you know what? If you waited 25 years or 30 years, then you blew it. You shouldn't get a conviction. There has to be statute of limitation. You can't wait till somebody gets rich, and then you see someone else blame him, and now all of a sudden everybody's going to jump on and we'll go, okay, everybody come on in. If you were holding something back for the last 20 years, come on in. I mean, it's just not fair. It's not right. It's not reasonable. But Rick, you don't understand. Rape is so look, I've worked rape cases. I understand. It's horrible. I hate it. It pisses me off. I don't like to see women emotionally scarred. But you know what? They reported it. They went through the humiliation. They did the rape kit, and they showed up in court. So they have credibility with me. If they waited 20 years and came back and you go, hey man, this happened 20 years ago and I didn't really want to tell anybody, and I was so embarrassed I didn't tell my sister, my friend, my husband, my boyfriend, I didn't tell anybody, but now I'm telling you. I don't buy it. So how is this case going to affect, and what are the obstacles and everything? So I kind of wrote down a couple of things. No one reported this, so you have no reports. That's a bad thing for the victims. None of them reported it. I know everybody's going to say there's reasons they're going to try to justify it away, but you know what? Nobody reported it. And they're going to say they didn't report it because he was big, powerful, rich, and I didn't want to tell anybody. You know what? Lewinsky went against the president, but she was smart enough to at least keep her dress with the DNA because they called her a liar and she was telling the truth. Of course, the liberals still think that Bill's innocent and it wasn't his fault and she tricked him. So, all the victims were young and wanted fame and went to his house not all of them, but most of them went to his house after the alleged rape and drug. Bought him gifts. That's going to be very bad for the defense. Now, there may be a couple victims that didn't do that. But so far, from what I'm hearing, none of the victims told anybody. That's another problem. Why would you not confide in anybody? I can understand maybe not telling the cops, not telling the hospital, not telling anybody in the industry, because all these girls are either Playboy bunnies. Another problem. You're a Playboy bunny, you're posing nude, and now you go to Bill Cosby's house, and now all of a sudden he raped you. All right, whatever. I mean, you know. So those are some issues. The problem for Bill is all the women are kind of repeating the same story. Now, the defense is going to say they're repeating the same story because they heard all these other women say it, and they're just going along with what they heard. The prosecution is going to say, these women aren't doing this, you're calling all these women liars, and they all can't be liars, and they all tell the same story. It's all about the blue pill. Now, I'm not sure, there's some mention of Quaaludes. Quaalude was big back in the 70s, 60s, 70s. They call them 714. 714 actually is the badge number of Dragnet's badge. If you look at the Dragnet badge, his badge number is 714, which is what they call a Quaalude. Kind of a cop inside deal. But anyway, so they're going to play this power corrupts, he was a powerful guy, and you know, they're all saying the same story. And you call that in crimes common scheme and design. So the prosecution is going to use this common scheme and design that he gets these women to their house, he gets these young girls who he wants to say he's going to help, and they all have these episodes of having a drink and then they don't remember anything. So they're all of age, they're all drinking, they're even saying we took the pills, volunteer. One girl goes, yeah, he gave me 4 of these blue pills and I took them and I don't remember anything. What? You know what? You can't use being drug-induced as an excuse, but they're going to say, well, no means no, Rick, and you can't consent, and if she passed out, he had to stop, and, you know, I mean, he's going to get screwed only because of the times of the political PCBS. It has nothing to do with justice and reasonableness. If you have a crime and you're a victim, you need to file a stinking report. And if you don't want to file a report, then it's over. I don't want you coming back 30 years. I'm going to go call the cops now and go, hey, you know what? 25 years ago, my neighbor stole a bag of grain for me. And I want to have him charged criminally for theft. They're going to look at me and go, are you freaking kidding me? But with rape, well, Rick, that's women, and we got to have this double standard. And, oh, man, I kind of feel sorry for Bill, but in a way I kind of believe that he probably did some of this shit, so I can't feel too sorry for him. Let's see here. One witness refused to give her real name. Now, there was a bunch of witnesses that kind of went in as John Does. I got a problem with that. If you want to spread your name and ruin this guy's reputation and say he did this, then by God, you ought to have to give your name. You shouldn't have to be able to appear on some damn TV show and say we're concealing her identity and she's using a fake name to protect her. But I'm going to say Bill Cosby does is slander and defame him. So that's going to be a problem, and that, to me, all that goes to credibility of the witness. They're already way down on the totem pole credibility because they waited so stinking long. So if I was doing this investigation, some of the things I would be looking at is one of the women said when the chauffeur was driving her home, and a lot of women say a chauffeur drove them home. So obviously all the chauffeurs need to be identified and questioned. But one of the chauffeurs said she was throwing up in there in the back seat because she was sick. She's saying from the drugs. I'm saying maybe you just drank too freaking much and you were in a high hanging out with Bill Cosby. You went to his house in a nice chauffeur driving around in a limousine or Rolls Royce, whatever it was, and you drank too damn much. And now all of a sudden it's not your fault and you got regret. So obviously the chauffeur says you're not the first one to throw up in the car. Okay, that's a clue. Now, if he did say that to her and they find the chauffeur that was working for him during the time of the rape, and he says, yeah, I said that, and then they ask him, why did you say that? And he says, you know what? Every time he had a woman over the house, when I took her home, they were always throwing up. Okay, that's a huge piece of the case. So, as an investigator, I would definitely be zeroing in on that. Obviously, you got to get all the witnesses, separate and get their stories and ask different things and then pick up clues that are... It's kind of tough to do that now because you have all these interviews on TV and statements and reports and New York Post and this and that. So it's very easy for the defense to say all these witnesses are corrupt because they've heard everything. That's why cops sometimes withhold information on investigation. We don't want the investigation to be compromised by giving out too much because we want to hold it back and say, if you knew this about the investigation, you must be involved. But you can't really say that now with all these women. You know what? I didn't start my damn timer. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to go to part 2 because I don't want to have to post this on my horse channel and have all the women complaining that I'm talking about rape. All right, let me make this part 1 and we'll go to part 2.